I'll start with the part nobody believes. When the ATM barked insufficient funds, I actually chuckled, like the machine was teasing me. Yesterday, my balance was fat with 41 years of overtime and skipped vacations. I didn't know my daughter had drained both accounts at sunrise and sped out of town with a man whose smile never reached his eyes. I also didn't know my 15-year-old grandson was already 3 moves ahead of every adult in the story. Before I go on, please subscribe, tap like, and drop a comment with the local time where you're listening. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The receipt the ATM spit at me read like an obituary. Balance $0. Last withdrawal Amanda price. My Amanda. The teller, a kid with a sunflower pin, turned the monitor and whispered, joint holder. I'd added Amanda during her divorce because paperwork felt like love. I walked out in a fog, sat in my Chevy, and dialed. No answer. Again. Voicemail. On the 5th try she picked up with a voice that had already made me the villain. Dad, I'm done scraping by. Derek and I are starting fresh. I took what I deserve. What she deserves. It buzzed around the cab like a trapped wasp. What about Ethan? I asked. He's with me. She lied so smoothly I almost believed her. Then she hung up and blocked me. The muscles in my forearms went tight as cable. I drove to the river park and sat on the bench with the brass plaque for a man who never missed a Little League game. Ducks drifted like they owned the water. I rewound the winter. Derek's leather jacket, his eyes counting my house. Amanda glowing like she was 18. My neighbor Brent, he's a cop, murmuring, that plate sings a bad song, while I poured him coffee and changed the subject. Worry felt impolite. I told myself people can change and kept the door open. Today that door felt like a hole in the side of the boat. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun slid behind the oak and the kitchen smelled like lemon oil because I'd cleaned last night out of habit, as if shine could cancel danger. I braced myself to tell Ethan, to watch his careful face crack. He was at the table with a spiral notebook open, grid paper full of arrows and times. He looked up steady as a surgeon. Grandpa, he said, I know. 2 words, and the floor steadied and fell all at once. He slid a manila folder to me. Inside were printouts from city websites, a map with a street circled, and lines of neat handwriting that looked like a blueprint for sanity. I heard Mom and Derek, he said. Monday night. They thought I was asleep. He pointed to a time, a plate number, and a photo he'd printed of the apartment building near a university. She said your passwords out loud, he added, and the shame of that sentence landed heavier than the bank receipt. He wasn't bluffing. He had a license number, bus routes, a reminder to bring my blood pressure pills. He'd taped $20 bills, lawn mowing money, to the inside of his backpack in case. 15. I poured 2 coffees, light and sweet for him when he's nervous, and listened while he outlined a plan cleaner than anything I'd manage on my best day. I'm sorry I didn't tell you yesterday, he said. You always try to fix Mom with money. I thought one quiet day would help. He wasn't accusing me. He was protecting me. That stung worse and better than anything all at once. Why map all this? I asked. He tapped the folder. Because I already made a call. The kitchen tilted. Who? He met my eyes. A tip line. He read a case number from memory and recited the description he'd given. Wanted suspect, motorcycle, address, car make, time. He'd written it first so he wouldn't forget under pressure. He'd thought of everything. Something in my chest ached and opened at once. You shouldn't have had to do this, I said. He shrugged like the weight fit his shoulders. You take care of me, he said. My turn. We sat there listening to the old wall clock click itself toward evening, and I thought about casseroles I'd delivered, rent I'd paid, phones I'd replaced, and how rescue curdles into permission if you pour it too long. Across the table, Ethan shaded a little pawn he'd sketched in the margin, studying an endgame none of his teachers could grade. I reached and took his hand. Whatever happens, I said, we stand together. The phone rang, one of those old rings that yanks on your nerves. Once, twice, a longer third. Ethan's eyes lifted, calm. I answered. Amanda's voice hit like cold water. How could you, she yelled. You ruined everything. Traffic hissed behind her. A siren wailed close. Put Derek on, I said. No, you don't get to talk to him. You did this. Admit it. I looked at Ethan. He didn't flinch. I kept my voice even. What I did was lock my door. She laughed once, mean and small. You're going to regret that. I looked around our kitchen, the patched screen door, the dent in the mixing bowl from my late wife, the scuffed boards from Ethan's chair, and felt steadier than I had in months. No, I said. I'm done regretting the right things. Listen carefully, she said, voice dropping to that hard edge from her teens. Send money now, or you'll be sorry. I looked at the mixing bowl, the screen door, the chessboard. Ethan nodded once. I took a breath like stepping onto new boards. No, I said. The word clicked like a lock. Silence. Then another voice cut in. Mr. Carter. When I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, the other voice cut in over Amanda's anger, firm and professional. Mr. Carter, this is Detective Lawson with the Columbus Police Department. We have some questions about your daughter's companion, Derek Miller. My pulse kicked hard. Amanda's yelling blurred into static. What's going on? I asked. The detective didn't waste time. Your tip this morning matched an open case. We have Derek in custody on charges of armed robbery, fraud, and parole violations. Your daughter is with him. We need you to confirm a few details. Amanda screamed in the background, Dad, don't you dare, before the line cut dead. I stared at the phone, heart pounding, the kitchen clock ticking like a hammer. Ethan watched me, steady as stone. It worked, he whispered, half relief, half dread. My grandson had pulled the trigger on the entire operation, and now the law was grinding into motion. That night, I couldn't eat. I wandered the house like a man tracing his own footprints through a burned-out building. Every corner held ghosts of Amanda. The high chair still folded in the basement, her school portrait still smiling from the hallway wall, the scratch on the banister from when she slid down with reckless laughter. How had the same girl who once ran barefoot through sprinklers become the woman who threatened me over the phone? I sat in my armchair, unable to watch the evening news, afraid I'd see her name scroll across the bottom of the screen. Ethan padded downstairs with his chest set tucked under his arm. Grandpa, play with me, he said quietly. I shook my head, but he insisted, setting the board on the coffee table and lining up the pieces with military precision. You taught me not to resign before the game is over, he said. So we played. My mind was fog, but his moves were crisp, deliberate. Every time he slid a piece forward, it felt like he was staking a claim on stability, anchoring us both. Midway through, I realized he wasn't trying to win. He was building patterns that gave me easy victories. My throat tightened. The boy was shielding me with pawns. Around 9, headlights flared through the curtains. I rose, pulse quick. A knock rattled the door. Brent, my neighbor and the off-duty cop, stood there, jaw set. We need to talk, he said. Ethan froze behind me. Brent lowered his voice. They picked Derek up at an apartment near the university. Your daughter was there. She's not under arrest yet, but she's being questioned. Thought you should hear it before the papers do. His eyes flicked toward Ethan. Kid, you're sharper than most detectives I've met. That tip saved your granddad's pension, and maybe more. Ethan straightened, his shoulders squaring with pride he tried to hide. Brent gave me a look, the kind older men give each other when words can't cover the weight. Protect him, he said. The fallout's just starting. When he left, the porch light made his cruiser shine like steel. I closed the door, and Ethan asked softly, What happens to Mom now? I sat him down, the chessboard still between us. That depends on her, I said, though the truth was tangled. She made choices, and choices come with consequences. He nodded, staring at the black queen in his hand, then whispered, I'm not scared of her anymore. Later, alone in my room, I pulled the fireproof box from under the bed again, counting the stacks of bills by lamplight. It wasn't much, but it was ours. My father's voice echoed from the past. Always keep a reserve nobody knows about. I understood now. Amanda had taken everything visible, but she couldn't touch what I'd hidden out of instinct. For the first time all day, I felt like I had ground beneath me. Downstairs, Ethan was humming softly, a boy rebuilding his own calm after chaos. I lay awake listening, torn between grief for a daughter I'd lost and awe for the grandson who had stepped into a storm with clear eyes and a steady hand. When the phone rang again near midnight, the sound clawed at my chest. I answered in darkness. Amanda's voice was ragged, stripped of rage. Dad, they've got Derek. He's going away for years. I don't have money. I don't have a place to go. I just need help. Her tone shifted, pleading, the same tone she'd used when she was 12 and wanted me to fix everything. Please, Dad. Just a little. For me. I sat there gripping the phone, staring at the shadows on the ceiling, Ethan's careful map still open on the dresser. Every part of me ached to say yes, to rescue her again. But Ethan's words from earlier whispered louder than Amanda's. You always try to fix Mom with money. I took a long breath, the kind that felt like it might break me. No, I said softly. The line went quiet. Then Amanda's voice hardened again. If you don't help me now, you'll never see me again. I looked toward the doorway where Ethan stood in his pajamas, watching, listening. My answer came easier this time. Then that's your choice. I set the phone down gently, my hand trembling. Ethan walked over and sat beside me, leaning against my shoulder like he had when he was 5. We'll be okay, he said. And for the first time that day, I believed him. I barely slept after that call. The old house creaked with every gust of wind, and each sound made me wonder if Amanda was outside, furious and desperate, ready to pound on the door until I gave in. When dawn finally pushed through the curtains, I was already at the kitchen table, a cold cup of coffee sweating in my hands. Ethan came down in his school clothes, backpack slung over his shoulder, and for a moment, he looked like any other teenager about to catch the bus. But the folder tucked carefully inside his bag reminded me he wasn't just any boy. He'd carried a secret that could have shattered me, and instead he used it to protect us both. Grandpa, he said cautiously, if Mom comes here, what will you do? His eyes locked on mine, testing, measuring whether I was still the man who said yes to every plea, every crisis. I forced my voice steady. I'll do what's right for you and for me. Not for her this time. He gave a small nod and turned to the door. Okay, that's all I needed to hear. After he left for school, I sat in silence, staring at the chessboard still half set up from last night. The black queen leaned at an angle, toppled during our last moves. It looked almost symbolic. Amanda, the queen of manipulation, lying sideways while the rest of the board remained. I picked it up and set it upright again, reminding myself that games can always change if you play with patience. The phone rang mid-morning. It wasn't Amanda this time, but Detective Lawson. Mr. Carter, we'll need you to come down to the station this afternoon, he said. Your daughter isn't facing charges at the moment, but we'd like your statement regarding the stolen funds. I agreed, my voice flat, my hands already clammy. My daughter's betrayal had become official business, written into reports and case files that would outlast both of us. At the station, everything smelled of burnt coffee and disinfectant. A young officer led me to a gray room with a table, 2 chairs, and a buzzing fluorescent light. Lawson walked in carrying a folder thick with papers. He sat across from me, glasses low on his nose. You've been through hell, Mr. Carter, he began. I won't sugarcoat it. Derek's not just a thief, he's dangerous. Your daughter may claim she didn't know about his robberies, but we both know she benefited from his schemes. My throat tightened, but I managed. What about my money? He flipped a page. Some was found in Derek's car, marked as evidence. Recovery is possible, but it won't be quick. Court orders, restitution processes, it could take years. Years. The words sat in my chest like a stone. 41 years of sweat and sacrifice, now trapped behind paperwork and bars. Lawson must have seen the despair in my face. You're lucky in one way, he added. Most victims don't even see justice. Thanks to that tip, Derek will be gone a long time. I left the station carrying nothing but papers and the hollow knowledge that my daughter was still free, even if her partner wasn't. On the drive home, I thought about how many times I'd excused Amanda's behavior, calling it bad luck or temporary weakness. But sitting in that gray room had ripped away the excuses. She wasn't a child anymore. She was a woman who made choices. Choices that left me broke and nearly destroyed Ethan's world. When I pulled into the driveway, Ethan was already home from school, waiting on the porch. He watched me with a calm older than his years. How bad is it? He asked. I hesitated, then told him the truth. The money wasn't coming back soon, and his mother wasn't going to stop making demands. He listened quietly, then surprised me with a firm, "We'll manage. We don't need her." His certainty rattled me. 15 years old, and he had already cut the cord that bound me in knots for decades. That evening, I made spaghetti while Ethan spread his homework across the kitchen table. The smell of garlic and tomato sauce filled the air, a normal scene that felt almost unreal after the day we'd had. Grandpa, Ethan said, not looking up from his math problems, you know she'll try to come back here. She's got nowhere else. What will you do when she knocks? I stirred the pot, heart hammering. This house is our safe place. If she comes, she doesn't walk in unless she's ready to change. No more handouts, no more excuses. Ethan finally lifted his eyes, and the pride shining there nearly brought me to tears. Good, he said simply. Around 9, the inevitable happened. The knock at the door was softer than I expected, almost timid. Ethan froze, fork halfway to his mouth. My heart thudded against my ribs. I walked to the door, bracing myself, and there she was. Amanda stood under the porch light, hair unwashed, face hollow, a duffel bag at her feet. She looked smaller somehow, but her eyes still carried that same dangerous glint, the one that always made me feel like I owed her something. "Dad?" she said, her voice breaking. "I've got nowhere else. Please, let me in." Behind me, I felt Ethan's presence, steady and unyielding. I gripped the doorknob tighter than I meant to. For 40 years, I'd opened this door to her every time. Tonight, I kept it half closed. "Why now, Amanda?" I asked. "You walked away with every dime I had. You left your son without a word. Why should I open this door?" Her lips trembled. "Because I'm your daughter. Because I made a mistake. Because I need you." The same old script. The same old hooks. Ethan shifted beside me, and for the first time I realized he wasn't afraid. He was watching to see if I would pass the test. My throat burned as I said, "You're not coming in tonight." Amanda's face crumpled, but then hardened. "You'll regret this," she hissed. She grabbed her bag and stormed off into the darkness, her footsteps echoing down the street. I closed the door slowly, the lock clicking louder than thunder. I turned to Ethan, expecting him to be shaken, but instead he nodded once, as if a balance had finally shifted in our home. "You did it," he said. "You didn't give in." I sank into my chair, the weight of decades pressing down and lifting all at once. Amanda's shadow might hover outside, but inside these walls, something had changed. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting. I was standing firm. And Ethan, my boy, my anchor, was standing with me. The night Amanda left our porch, I sat awake in my armchair long after Ethan went upstairs to bed. The house was quiet, but it wasn't the same kind of quiet I'd known for years. This quiet felt clean, like something heavy had finally been pushed out the door. My daughter's last words, "You'll regret this," still echoed in my ears, but for the first time I didn't feel like her threat had power over me. I kept replaying the look on Ethan's face when I turned her away. He hadn't looked scared. He had looked proud. That expression gave me more strength than any dollar I had ever earned at the plant. The next morning, I woke to the smell of bacon sizzling. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. But when I walked into the kitchen, there was Ethan, apron on, frying pan in hand, cooking breakfast like he'd been doing it for years. "You deserve a break, Grandpa," he said with a grin. My throat tightened so much I could barely swallow. I realized he wasn't just helping, he was stepping into responsibility, into manhood, right before my eyes. We sat at the table, eating together, and for a few minutes it felt like a normal morning in a normal home. Except now, normal was ours to define. Later that week, I got a call from Detective Lawson again. He told me Derek was officially charged and would likely serve a long sentence. Amanda, however, was released. "She's not guilty of his robberies," he explained, "but we know she helped him. Unfortunately, unless she confesses or slips up, we can't hold her." My chest ached with disappointment, but also with a strange kind of relief. Amanda was free, but she wasn't here. I hung up and looked around the living room at the photographs lining the mantel. So many smiling faces, so many memories where love had been real and pure. I touched one frame. Amanda at age 10, holding her science fair ribbon. Her eyes back then had been bright with pride, not entitlement. I whispered to the empty room, "I miss that little girl." But I also knew the woman she'd become was dangerous to the peace Ethan and I had built. Weeks passed, and Amanda didn't come back. Instead, Ethan and I built routines stronger than ever. We went grocery shopping every Tuesday evening. He helped me mow the lawn on Saturdays. He even started teaching me things about technology one never thought I'd understand. How to pay bills online, how to set up alerts on my phone in case of suspicious activity. "We won't ever get caught off guard again," he promised. His steady tone reminded me that this boy, this 15-year-old, had saved me in ways no one else ever could. At night, we played chess, but now he stopped letting me win. "You need the challenge," he said, eyes twinkling with mischief. And he was right. Each game forced me to think sharper, to keep my mind active. Every move felt like practice for real life. But Amanda hadn't disappeared entirely. She called once more from an unknown number. Her voice was brittle, desperate. "Dad, please. Just $200. I need food, a motel for a week. I promise I'll pay you back." I gripped the receiver until my knuckles ached. "Amanda," I said, calm but firm, "I can't. You need to stand on your own. Ethan and I are moving forward. You should too." The silence that followed was heavy. Then she hung up without another word. I sat in the kitchen afterward, staring at the wall, my hands trembling. The old me would have given in instantly, convinced myself I was helping. But the new me knew better. Helping her had only ever meant hurting us. When Ethan found me there, he didn't ask what she'd said. He just put a hand on my shoulder and said, "You did the right thing." His quiet confidence steadied me better than any sermon. As summer turned into fall, Ethan grew taller, his voice deeper. He got a part-time job mowing lawns and saving every dime. One evening, he came home with a small envelope and laid it on the table. "For the house fund," he said. Inside were crumpled bills, 20 after 20, earned with sweat and grass stains. My eyes blurred as I held them. He wasn't just my grandson. He was my partner in survival now. Together, we balanced my pension with his summer money and the hidden $3,000 I'd kept away from Amanda. It wasn't luxury, but it was enough. More importantly, it was honest. One crisp October night, I sat on the porch with Ethan, watching the leaves fall in gold and crimson. "Grandpa," he said suddenly, "do you ever wish she'd come back?" The question sliced through me. I looked out at the darkening sky. "I wish the little girl I raised would come back," I admitted. "But the woman she is now? No, not if she won't change." Ethan nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "Then it's just us now," he said. And I realized that wasn't a sentence of loss. It was a declaration of strength. Just us was enough. The biggest change, though, came inside me. For decades, I believed being a good father meant fixing everything, sacrificing without limit. But I learned the hardest truth. Sometimes love means saying no. Sometimes love means protecting what remains instead of throwing it into a fire that never stops burning. Ethan showed me that. My grandson had become my teacher. He reminded me that family isn't just blood, it's who stands with you when the world caves in. Amanda made her choices, but Ethan made his too. And his choice was us. On Thanksgiving, we cooked together, laughing as smoke filled the kitchen when the turkey juices spilled over. Neighbors stopped by, and for the first time in years, I felt no shame, no need to explain Amanda's absence. Instead, I told stories about Ethan's brilliance, his bravery, his chess victories. I watched him blush with pride, and I thought, this is the family worth protecting. Now, as I sit here writing these words, Amanda is still out there somewhere, chasing shadows. Maybe one day she'll come home ready to change, ready to take responsibility. If she does, my door will be open, but only then. Until that day, Ethan and I will keep building our life, one brick at a time, stronger because of the storm we've survived. I look across the living room now and see Ethan bent over his homework, lips moving as he solves equations, a boy carrying himself like a man. And I know the future, however uncertain, is still ours. If you've listened to our story, I ask one thing. Subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me where you're listening from, and let me know what you would have done in my place. Your support keeps stories like mine alive and reminds us all that even after betrayal, there is always a way forward.